Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 357. Shark Attack Passing Game. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello, and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Rabinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Welcome back to the show. We had, this weekend, we only had one game, and we played against, I think it was the second place team. And we did okay. We lost 4-0. I thought, we were going in. We had some really good attacks. We had some really good possession, but we just weren't consistent. With my other coach who was with me, he pointed out something that's just correct, that we just can't seem to hold on to the ball with the older ages. We just lose the ball too easily. Whether it's a little bit of pressure on us, we just can't keep the ball when there's pressure. And it's not just the first touch. There's a lot of elements that we have to figure out here, because we don't just want our players to be robots and play one touch, two touch, because there are some opportunities and situations where they should take a second touch, do a move, and beat a player, and they do that. But the inconsistency in being able to keep possession when we do a lot of 1v1s is a big cause for concern. Now, looking at it from that point of view causes, a little bit of panic. However, we do the same thing with every single team. And what we're seeing with the 2014s and the 2015s and our 2013s who have been with us for a while is that they're not having these issues. They're not having the issue of losing the ball. In fact, sometimes they're getting 2 players, 3 players on them, and they're still able to somehow hold on to that ball through shielding, battling, all these different things. So there's something going on with the 2010s and the 2011s, and we really have to keep watching and really focusing on that element of keeping the ball. Now, through the game, one of the things that I yell out, and you'll hear me yell it out over and over and over again to most of the players with the ball. Again, I don't tell them what to do. I don't believe in that. What I do say is I yell, keep possession. I don't care how they do it. I don't care how they keep the ball, whether it's 1v1s, whether it's a give and go, whether they reset. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. What I want is for them to keep the ball. Attack, go, let's score. I do not want them to lose the ball. Now, if they do a move and they lose the ball, I'm okay with that. I don't mind them taking a chance. But what I'm not okay with is a fight between them and the other player and them losing, right? That battle. That's what I'm not okay with. I'm not okay with a player pressuring them and them not even trying a move but losing possession. That I'm not okay with at all. So these are things that we're going to be working on this week. And I'm going to do that in 2 ways. One, I'll be doing it with a new form of shark attack, which is the title of this episode. And then I'm going to start doing 2v2s. Why? Because 1v1s are great. Don't get me wrong. They're still my favorite thing. We will continue to do them with the younger ages. But with this age group, what they need to understand how to do properly, I think, is receive the ball under pressure, which is not something that you get in your 1v1s. You don't receive the ball. You start with the ball. Our dribbling is fine. We don't lose the ball that often when we do moves. The problem is we're not doing moves. And when we receive it, I can see a little bit of panic with certain players. So that 2v2 hopefully will address that. So that 2v2 is really going to overtake the 1v1s for our players moving forward. And I'll talk about all that, what we'll do a little bit later on in the podcast. There's some things that I wanted to talk about before. I think this is actually going to be a pretty long one today. Let me talk about the 3 different things that I have. How I hire a coach. That's going to be something that I'm going to cover today. I had a question in the Facebook group, which, by the way, is very close to 200, so really excited about that. It's I'll talk about what we do in our Zoom sessions, and a topic which I've always kind of considered cut and dry, that all players should be playing, should be multi-athlete sports, there should be no specialization, and I've completely done a 180. 360 would bring me back to where I was, a 180. So yeah, let's get into it. Our academy is growing very rapidly, and I'm looking to hire coaches. The way that I do that is I always have an ad on Indeed. Always, there's always one there, and constantly I'm getting applicants, right? Just on a weekly basis. And once a month, once every other month, whatever that is, whenever I see 3 or 4 that I really like, I'll do a group interview. And that's really important for me. Soccer is not a one person, one coach job. Very rarely are you the only coach. Very rarely, well, it's never just you. You have players, you have parents. You really have to interact with people. You have to do that in the right way. And there are mannerisms that you need, and there's just the way that you approach situations. So when I first started, I just had individual interviews with the coaches. And then I brought them in, and just for a few sessions, because that's what we do, I saw that they weren't even close. So I started doing group interviews. Group interviews are a really, really good way to just see what a person and how a person interacts in an environment which I use to challenge the applicants and just seeing how they react to it. I'll talk about some of the things that I look for when I do my interviews. First and most important, you must be early. You cannot be on time. You must be early. If you are late, I'll cross you off right then and there. You'll still do the interview because you're there essentially at that point as someone who's there for support for the other people. But if you are not early to my sessions, I cannot trust you. I don't care what's going on. And this is going to sound really harsh. And I don't care, honestly. If you are a coach that works for me and you have to go to a game, you have to be at the game. I don't want to hear an hour before, 30 minutes before that something came up. I don't care what came up. You need to be there. Because if you are not there, we forfeit. There's a fine. There's so many other ramifications. Parents, kids that drove, there's too much. So if you can't even get to the interview on early, then it's not even worth it, right? But there's a bigger part before that. I'm looking for attention to detail. And I do that first by sending out an email. In that email, I outline exactly what I'm looking for. I want them to bring a session. I don't really care about the session. I want them to bring a session in. I want to see how they plan it and just how they approach it. I give them creative authority on how they want to do it. I don't really care how they do it. And I'll tell you why in a second. But the most important thing in that email is the last sentence. I say the following: please bring with you a printed copy of your resume. That for me is so important because I want to see how much their attention to detail is. Are they going to read a full email that I send? Are they just not going to care. So they show up early, okay, and we start talking. I'm really bad at small talk, just really bad at it, but I do my best. I get there 30 minutes early. Usually I'm on my computer working, and I have my tactic board beside me so they know how to find me. I do it at Starbucks close to where we run our sessions, essentially. Then when they all come, I start the interview, essentially. And the way that I do that is I look through their resume, which they should all give me at that point, and then I look over it again and ask them questions. Sometimes I ask soccer questions. I ask them life questions. I don't want someone who's not insanely passionate about soccer. Ideally, the candidate will want a future in soccer. That's really what I want. I need people that are just as passionate as me about this. So if I'm interviewing and, someone wants to be an engineer or whatever, that's great. Good for them, but it's probably not going to be a good fit, because I want someone who is really, really going to care. And I know that it's starting out as a part-time job, but we're also hiring people that aren't licensed. We're hiring people that are 19, 18, because just like our players, we want to teach them from the very beginning. So very rarely, and we haven't, and the ones that we have hired that have had licenses just didn't work out because they come in with preconceived notions, how to do things the right way. So it just doesn't work out usually. So we start talking. I ask them different questions. And then what I'll do is I'll ask for a volunteer who wants to show me their session first. And then they'll start presenting. I don't care at all what the session looks like. These are people that have never run sessions. Some of them may be for house league teams or rep teams, but who have played. But none of the stuff that they're going to show me, we're ever going to use in training. So it doesn't really matter what they bring. Actually, what I'm looking for is the people who aren't talking. I'm looking to see if they're paying attention. I'm looking to see how they're interacting. Are they making eye contact? Because when I'm coaching, and this is how we start with these new coaches, they need to be paying attention to everything that we're doing, because we just do pretty much the same thing over and over again with shark attack, stuck in the mud, 1v1s, all pretty much the same session every time for our players. So they need to be paying attention. We go over moves. They need to be paying attention to exactly how we do the moves. So if they can't even pay attention here in this situation when someone else is talking, forget about it. We'll go through each person. I'll ask random questions to try and challenge the person. So I'll give you an example. In one of my past interviews, I asked about, he was doing a simple pass drill with 2 lines and the players were passing back and forth. Again, these are things that we're never going to run anyway, and I'm not going to challenge him on lines and stuff like that. That's not where we're at. But what I challenged him on was, what if this pass goes and misses the player completely? And I drew a line diagonally just to see what he would say. And I would continue to challenge him. Not saying you're wrong, not saying this, challenging by asking questions just like we challenge our players. Okay. So he says something like, and here's what he said. He said, well, I would bring the line closer. And I said, okay, great. And because I have my tactic board, I took the little tactic guy and I moved him up. And I said, same thing. Ball goes diagonal. What would you do? What's the problem? How do we fix it? Questions to try and get him thinking. Because when coaches come into our session, that is how I coach my coaches. I ask them questions. Why do you think this is happening? Sometimes I'll ask questions that I don't know the answer to. Why are we not keeping possession in this activity? I'll ask them because I don't know. I can't see it, right? What's wrong with this player's 1v1? Why is he always failing? Can you watch this player the whole session and see why his score is in the negatives every single time? Can you watch this player, look at his shooting, or in fact, look at why he's not scoring in our games and see if there's any correlation? So I ask my coaches and I give them these jobs and I expect a quality answer back. right? Now, they're not going to get a quality answer in here, but I want to see how that interaction goes. Do they give me attitude? If they give me attitude, forget about it. I had a coach give me attitude in that first one because he wasn't used to it. After that, he didn't, but that was his reaction. You give me attitude, not going to work out because I'm constantly going to be challenging them to get better. So we do that. And then I do something a little weird. Well, I think this is all a little weird, but this one's even weirder. I will downplay the academy. I will make it seem as though it's just not for everyone. It's because it's not. I don't want them coming in with the expectation that this is going to be something that they are like, oh, okay, this is like my club team. It's not even close, right? Every session that they had, there's always lines. And I always mention, I will say, this is something that you've never seen before. We don't do lines at all. It's constant movement, constant playing. And I say, this is not for everyone. We are looking for coaches that we can train in the way that we do things. And that is just not for everyone. Then I also say something which is 100% true. This may not be the environment for you, but if you want to be a coach and you want that job at a rep club where you're the sole coach and it's your decision, that's very easy. You can apply to any of the clubs and they will take you right away. It's not very hard to get a job that way. It's not. With us, you will never have your own team, ever. I don't have my own team. I don't. We work together. We're constantly just together, me and my other coaches. Okay? There's no one team for one coach. That doesn't make sense. I can't have a coach have one team because then they don't see the big picture. The big picture isn't winning for that team. It's development. And if you only see one team, you are only concerned about their team and their performance. If you see the whole academy, then you're able to put different things together. For example, this weekend, the fact that the older team can't keep the ball, can't keep possession, but our younger teams can. They do it really well. They don't get I want to say bullied off the ball, I think would be the right way to put it. They don't. So being able to see all these different things and having a big picture is so important. So I tell them that. And I really try and make it clear to them, this is not an environment for everyone. And then I simply say, sometimes I'll say, if I like the group, I'll say, look, I'm open to you coming, trying it out, and seeing how you do. If I don't, then I'll usually say something like, thanks for coming. I really appreciate you taking the time to, make the sessions, all this, all that. If we're interested, I'll send you an email. And that's pretty much it. That's how I do my interviews. I take my business very seriously. I worked my butt off to build what I've built. And I'm not going to compromise for anything at all. We are high quality, everything that we do, and that includes the coaches that we are bringing in. So it's going to take a long time to bring in coaches. But once I bring in a coach, they are with me. So I don't need that many. So I can afford, even though we're growing very rapidly, to take my time and just find the right person. It's like dating, right? It would be like someone setting you up on a blind date and then you proposing on that blind date. It makes no sense. You got to get to know the person. You got to make sure they're the right fit. You got to date for a while. Like all these things. Same thing when you're hiring an employee, right? That interaction starts even before the interview with the email. Then the interview. After that, they come into our session. Even after they come into the session, it's usually, I'll give them a month. See how they do in that month. It takes a very long time for that person to really get into what we do. And I'm okay with that. So that's a little bit about how I hire coaches. I had a question about how I run my Zoom sessions. My Zoom sessions, which, by the way, I absolutely love doing them. It's really interesting to see the players that show up and the players that don't. I'll start with that. The players that show up are the ones really that are, you can just see how invested they are on the field, off the field, and I absolutely love it. They're so passionate about the club, the academy. They're so passionate about soccer, and they just want to learn. So the sessions usually go great from that point of view. There are really players there that want to learn. And what's great about the academy, this is a free Zoom session. Anyone that wants to can come. So you can start to really see teams that are showing up, and it shows the teams that are doing well. Based on everything that I've talked about, you can pretty much tell which team has the most representatives there. 2014s, right? They're the ones, they care. They care, right? The 2012s are there. 2013s, we have one 2011 player, and he's the one that's always doing well, best player in the game every single time. No 2010s, right? So you can kind of start to see it right away. The reason I love the Zoom sessions and that I really love the way we use VO is because, and this is my favorite thing about VO, I can tailor the Zoom sessions based on the players that are there. So what we do with the VO is, first of all, in the beginning of the session, I'll start with just watching a game that's going on. So as players come in, because some players join early, some players join late, I always have a recording of a game on the computer because every streaming thing is online now. So you can always kind of just have them watch. So they usually watch for about, those that come 5 minutes early, we usually watch for about 10 minutes, 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after. We'll watch a game. I'll make a little bit of points until players come. And then I'll go through and see which players are in the session. Then I will pick the game of the week that we will watch. So, for example, this weekend, we had the 2010s. That was the only team that played. We only had one 2011 show up who was there at the game. So it didn't make sense for us to go back and watch that game. They're playing 6v6, so none of our other teams, the younger teams, play 6v6. So it just doesn't make sense. So we ended up watching the Manchester City Arsenal game. And I tailor the Zoom sessions for those players. So let's say we have a big contingent of 2012s and 2014s. Then we'll do half 2014 game, half 2012 game. Or if there are players from every age group, then we'll watch 15 minutes of each one. But what I love most about VO is the ability to watch what I want on the field. Yes, it follows the ball, but there's also a really good option on it that you can watch the whole field and you can move around. So if I have mostly defenders, then I don't really care about scoring. I don't really care about showing that part. I'll focus on those players. And that's how I run the Zoom sessions. That's how I make it essentially effective for those players. We can focus on that player throughout the whole game, right? Or a variety of players, and just really show them what they're doing during the game. The best part about this is our 2014 goalie is just about always there. So at different points in the game, I'll pause it, and then I'll just pan it over to see where he is. What is he doing? Okay? And I'll say, are you happy with where you are? If not, okay, where should you be? Those types of things. So we can do that with all the other players. So that's really how I run my Zoom sessions. It's nothing crazy. There's no, the whole idea behind the Zoom sessions is you need to watch your game back. You need to see how you did. You need to see, did you make a mistake? If so, can you do something about it? Okay, what do you see? And I ask these questions of our players. What do you see here? How could you change that? Okay, could you have made a different run? Could you this? Could you that? And just like in the interviews with coaches, I challenge the players with questions. I show them things and tactical things based on what we do. This session, I think this was like 2 or 3 weeks ago when we made that switch to 3-4-1, 3-2-2-1. That was what I used the session for. Let's look how this works. Okay, and again, what was great, Manchester City sometimes play 3-4-3, so you could go back and do that. But that's really what I use my Zoom session for. It's nothing too exciting, you know. I hope I didn't kind of burst your bubble and you were expecting some secret. There aren't. The kids are there to watch themselves play. That's why they're there. You show them what they're doing. You show them how they can do it better, what to avoid, and you're good. That's it. And since we spoke about VO, I absolutely love VO. The VO2 has made such a big difference from the VO1. So if you have the VO1, really look into upgrading. It's just made a world. The connection is so easy. It's just the best tool. If you're looking for a VO, I think we have a $200 off. You can check in the show notes, and maybe I'll post it on Facebook as well a little later. I think I'll do that as well. The last thing before I kind of go through the session, talk about the 2v2 shark attack and all that, I want to talk about multisport. I've always believed that players shouldn't specialize at an early age. That was I didn't specialize at an early age, and I became a well-rounded athlete. I played basketball, I played hockey, I played obviously soccer, I played football. I was very bad at football. I didn't like it that much. I don't know. For me, getting tackled is not fun. It's just not. It's not something that I like. So I played football when I lived in Kansas for a year. Anyway, so I played every sport I could. If there was a team, I would be on it. That was how school was. So I've always believed that it really helped me become a well-rounded athlete. I haven't had many injuries, knock on wood. I had a fractured ankle during a soccer training match, but other than that, I don't know if it's me being fortunate, but I always kind of thought it was because I played so many sports. So when people kind of gave that, oh, it's okay to specialize when it's a child 4 days a week, I kind of always rolled my eyes. But I've changed my mind. And I'll tell you why I've changed my mind. The purpose of multisport is very simple. It's to make sure that your body has a great foundation and that you are well-rounded, so you are injury prevented, essentially. That your muscles, that your ligaments, that everything is not overworked, which is the argument against specializing. You overwork one muscle too much and the others can't necessarily compensate. So these are the kind of arguments that are for multisport, and I agree with them. I want to start by saying that. I completely agree with it still. But I found a loophole. And here's what it is. If you're a specialized athlete, even at a young age, let's say 9, 10, 11, the way that you can really compensate for that is by getting a strength coach. It's so simple. If you go and you get a specialized coach that can, on your off days, work on the strengthening parts that you need, that you're not getting when you're doing your training, then you're good, right? If I had someone that worked with me for, arms, chest, core, those types of things, balance, then you don't really need the other sports because you're getting that from a professional. So I think that's okay. Having said that, I'm not taking away from the fun of it. So if you want to do multi-sport, like I still, if I could go back, relive my life, and I had the option of having a strength coach or I would do multi-sports because I just loved it. But I'm talking about kids that don't want to play other sports. If you want to, go for it. There's nothing, I'm never going to stop a kid from trying different sports, all this, all that. But I'm talking about the ones that don't want to, right? Because that's the argument here. There are people that believe, and I used to be one of them, that you should force kids to try all these other things. But I don't think that's the case. With the science that we have, with the testing, the ability, you can go into a physio and essentially say, my son wants to be a soccer player. We're kind of worried about, ACL, all those types of injuries. Can you do some tests, see how their knee is? Okay, can you provide strength and build a good foundation within their ankles and stuff like that? And they'll do it. They'll be able to do it. Physios, strength trainers, even chiropractors. There are so many different avenues for a child now to be able to be safe, to have injury prevention at a very high level. So that's my little spiel about that. Let's talk about what this week really looked like. What we had essentially was we started out in this new Shark Attack game, and to be honest, it wasn't that great, and I think I know why. But what we did was we split the teams into two. So let's talk about Shark Attack really quick. So you're all sharks inside the water. Okay, the water is an area, doesn't matter how big, 15 by 15, whatever. Your job is to be the last shark standing. You do that by kicking everyone's balls out. So people call it sharks and minnows, whatever that is. So we split the teams into two. And then we had one group of sharks go in, try and kick other people's ball. And once those balls were out, the team that had the ball were trying to essentially play monkey in the middle to try and keep the ball. So what ended up happening was it worked okay, but I thought it didn't flow. And I think it didn't flow well because we had too many players. I think the right amount would be 5. That's what we're going to try today and do it that way. But honestly, going through the session, and I did this podcast episode. I started recording way before, so we had this idea. I think the more effective way was the 2v2. The 2v2 was really good. It high energy, no downtime. So it was, for us watching, really got the players to work on what we wanted, which is they're receiving the ball and they get pressured. So they have to make decisions really quick. And we started playing that one-touch, two-touch move thing, which really works, in my opinion. When we watched the City and Arsenal game, that's kind of how they played. 1, 2, maximum 4 touches, and those 4 touches were there was already a move within that. So for us, that's really how we're going to start to play in the games. We're going to start to go one-touch, two-touch move, and we'll see how that works. But that 2v2 is something we're going to just work on this week. We're going to do it every single practice with these players. So today, we did it yesterday, and we'll do it Friday before the games as well. And we'll see what happens. But I think that's really going to help moving forward the 2v2. So I've had a really busy couple of days. So usually I start recording the podcast on Tuesday morning. Then I have my session Tuesday night. And then I reflect kind of on Wednesday on the past session if there was anything that I have to add. But because yesterday was so busy, I just haven't had time. So it's Thursday today, which is really good because now I've had 2 sessions. Now, let me start this off by saying this. I want to share with you my secret. This is, I would say, 60% of my success of the academy, of everything that I've done within soccer. Whenever I go and watch anything, I go in with an open mind. I learned that lesson about, 6 years ago. Might have even been, less than that, like 5 or 4. I've told this story before on the show, but we had a coaching conference here in Ontario. It's the Ontario Soccer Summit. And a coach from Bayern came in, and every single second, he ran a session, a bunch of coaches watching. Every single about 5 seconds, he would stop and coach, stop and coach, stop and coach. We went to lunch as a group, and everyone talked, and inevitably, the coaches were, oh, it's so sad that even in Germany at Bayern Munich, they stopped the session. I thought we moved past this. All this kind of what I call noise and just negativity. And I was quiet. I don't like to start confrontation or anything like that. I like to keep my opinions to myself unless I'm talking on the show. But when I'm in a group, I'm usually the listener. I'm not really an outgoing person unless I'm coaching. Other than that, I really like to listen and observe. That's just who I am. So one of the guys who knew me, he asked, Sega, what did you think? And I said, are you sure you want me to, give my opinion? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, but you're not going to like it. I thought it was great. And I thought that what I got from it was actually that the players in Ontario are not even close to the expectations of a U13 Bayern Munich coach. So we have to stop it every 5 seconds. That's what I learned from that session, that we are nowhere close to that. And what I got from that was essentially, look, there's something to learn every single session, everywhere you go. So here's the story, and I'm going to relate everything back, I promise. Yesterday, I had a meeting at a school. The school had a hockey rink. And before my meeting, this is one of the best hockey programs in Ontario. So I was watching their practice. It was their top team practicing. And I was just watching, because, again, open mind, doesn't matter what sport, I'll watch. If it's a good session, love it. What I didn't know was this is one of the best coaches, again, in Ontario. Great guy. Didn't know him at all, but I was watching the session. And I'm going to describe this in a weird way because I'm going to use hockey terminology and soccer terminology, so bear with me. So here's the setup, okay? We're talking about two different teams. We're talking about the attacking team and the defending team. So, sorry. No. Let's talk about our team versus their team. Okay, so the way that we start out is with two defenders. Okay, so we have two defenders, and the other team starts off with the puck. Okay, they're starting off with one player in between the two defenders. The defending team, the opposing team, passes the puck to us, to one of the defenders. The defender then passes the puck to the winger. The winger then takes a couple of strides forward, resets, they switch it to the other side, to the other defender, attack with the winger, and go. So I was watching it over and over and over again, and I just thought, interesting. That was really the word that came to mind because it was a transition that he was working on. It was clear. Your team just won the puck. What do you do? Well, first of all, you're in a small. Your team is small, right? Because you didn't have the ball. You're in defensive formation. You just won the ball. What do you do? And it was really interesting. And then the guy that I was meeting with came. We sat down, and it just so happened that the coach, because this is kind of the central location of the school, ended up coming, and I recognized him, which is tough because he was wearing hockey gear, right? Wearing a helmet, but I recognized him. And I started talking to him. Really nice guy. And I asked him about that last part of the session. Funny enough, he played soccer growing up, played for Team Ontario. So we just kind of started talking and all that. And that gave me an idea. So let's bring it back to practice. So that was early yesterday, Wednesday morning, when I had that meeting. So yesterday, when I ran the session, we didn't even do that shark attack. In fact, going back, I don't think it's that worth it, honestly. And this is what I love, that I can reflect on it. I came in, this weekend, frustrated with the teams, the way they performed. We sat in the car on the way home, found this, shark attack game. Okay, that was the plan going into the week. We started that shark attack game with one team. Didn't quite work out well. Everyone was bunched up, all this, all that. Then I thought, okay, let's change it to 2v2. Worked really well. Absolutely loved it. And then what I saw this morning yesterday morning really got me thinking, okay, how can I do this? Because that's really what we're trying to address. We're trying to address the fact that we just got the ball, and usually we're in a transitional moment, or we're building out of the back just like they were, the hockey team, I mean, and we want to get out of there. So how do I do that? Well, the way he had it set up was his defensive line, his midfield line, and then the opposing confrontation line. So whoever was going to be part of their line of confrontation, right, which is that line that essentially your team holds before they press, right? So there's a specific place on the field. Some coaches have it. It could be the first third, middle third. It could be half, that your team kind of waits until the other team crosses half and then you press. So whatever. So your line of confrontation, which for him was his forward, who he did a little bit different, but that's okay. Never mind. Not the point. Anyway, so what I did was pretty simple. I took my defensive line. I took my midfield line. Didn't matter what team. I did it with my 7v7 team. I did it with my 9v9 team. Doesn't matter. As long as you have your defensive line, your midfield line. Then what I did was on the edge of the field, and don't forget we're playing in a futsal gym, so we had the end of the field. I put 3 cones down, my forward and my 2 wingers. Those are the players that I want pressing. They started with the ball. They passed it to my defensive midfield line, usually to my defenders, and then we would transition, right? We would transition because the other team had the ball there, so we were small. Then we got the ball. Then we got bigger and bigger. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely crushed it. Like, incredible. First of all, the difference between the first time we tried it to the end of the session, a completely different team. We were struggling to make passes at the beginning. By the end, we were 1-2, 1-2, move. Like, exactly the way that I wanted to play. Now, here's why I loved it. Absolutely loved this. There's a lot of reasons. One, there's a transitional moment. It's exactly like the game. I guess those are 2 points. So you're playing in a situation that you're going to be in the game, right? Let's say the other team clears it, right? They had the ball, your defenders get it, and then you can start. Or let's say your midfielder wins the ball, right? Reset to the defender, and then now we can start to play or transition. So exactly like the game, this is something that happens in every single game. The other thing that I love about it is that there's a natural stoppage. Now, here's the stoppage, okay? The attacking team, the defensive and midfield line team, they're scoring on 2 goals that are put on the edge of, on the wide spaces, okay? So in the wide spaces, there are 2 nets. Okay, the reason I'm doing that is because I want my teams to attack through the wide space. I want my wingers to attack through the wide space. If I wanted them to attack through the center space, I would put 1 goal in the center space, right? So that's how the game ends there. But what's really great is if the forward line, if they win the ball, they can score. So you have that pressing, which our forwards need to work on, that pressing shape. And when they win the ball, they score on our goalkeeper who's in net. So it's exactly like the game. There's natural stoppages, which allow me to put in my coaching points. Some of the time there wasn't any, right? I would just let them play for 2-3 times before I spoke, right? Really let them get into it, give them a couple of points, let them keep playing. And it allowed the team to kind of reset, take their time, and then go, which was really good, right? Because it gives you that moment where you can, okay, let's just reset for a second. And at this point, that's what we need. We have to understand where we should be when we don't have it. We have to understand what we should do as soon as we get the ball. So we're going to do this on Friday as well. This will lead up to our weekend, but I'm really excited with this. This is something really cool and something that, again, only happened because I watched a hockey practice. And there's a lot of this in team sports. Basketball, same way. the amount of switching from one side to the other, the defensive zone shape. There are so many aspects within different sports that you should be looking at, right? Even football, the runs of the receivers, the way they get open when it's 1v1. If you're just watching the receivers in football, wow, like that's a lesson on its own on creating space. So, just something interesting. What's also interesting is the evolution of the week, right? I constantly, the thing about me that I'm so proud of and the thing about my success is that I will always try and learn something every day. And as long as I can do that, I can look back at the guy yesterday and say, we're moving forward. We can keep moving forward. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. All 4 of our teams are playing this weekend, so I'm really excited to see how we do. I think the practices this week were really good so far, so I'm excited to see if they've had an impact. Next week, I'll obviously talk about how our teams did, but I have an announcement to make next week. Really exciting announcement. It's been so hard to keep this under wraps. Like, so hard. Every single time I get on the episode, I just want to talk about it, but I can't. So, next week, I promise there's going to be a really big announcement. On top of that, our Facebook group is doing really well. We're almost at 200. So, if you want, please join Coaching Soccer Weekly. Also, if you're looking for a VO, link there. But until next week, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the game. Coaching Soccer Weekly is a production of World Class Coaching. All rights reserved.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. And you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.